For as long as we've known him, The Rock has been a huge man, heavily muscle-bound and dominant in size and stature. At his peak, he weighed over 300 pounds, and he's built his image and career on being the biggest guy in the room. But recently, fans have noticed something unusual. Pictures of The Rock have surfaced where he looks significantly smaller. He's slimmed down, reportedly losing over 60 pounds, and it's left him looking far more ordinary than the action figure physique he's carried for years. Even his face tells a story. It's slimmer, tighter, and almost gaunt compared to The Rock we're used to seeing. Public reaction has been mixed. Some people say he looks healthier and fresher, like he's finally found a more sustainable version of himself. But others argue that he's lost what made him The Rock, that without the oversized frame, he just doesn't stand out in the same way. The memes have come fast too, with people joking that he's gone from The Rock to the Pebble. So what's really going on? It's well known that The Rock's size has been questioned his entire career. He's admitted experimenting with PEDs as a teenager, but many believe he's continued using them in secret for years. And at 53 years old, the reality is simple. The body can only take so much. Maybe slimming down is about health, because he simply can't keep pushing himself to those extremes forever. But maybe it's about something else. For years, The Rock has been Hollywood's biggest safe bet, a guaranteed box office draw who always plays a larger-than-life version of himself. But that same formula has also limited him. Cutting down could be more than just a health choice. It might be about changing his image and finally chasing the kind of roles he's never gotten. The question now is whether The Rock is about to flip the script on Hollywood, on his image, and on everything we thought we knew about him. Earlier this month, The Rock attended the Venice Film Festival for his new film, The Smashing Machine. Unlike his previous work, this isn't a superhero movie or a big-budget blockbuster. It's a character piece about Mark Kerr, the MMA fighter who shot to the top in the late 90s before drugs and personal struggles brought everything crashing down. The film is directed by Benny Safdie and stars Emily Blunt as Kerr's wife, Dawn. To play the part, Dwayne went all in. He bulked up to match Kerr's imposing frame and wore facial prosthetics over his nose, brow, cheeks, and jaw. For the first time, he wasn't selling himself as The Rock. He was disappearing into someone else. When the film premiered in Venice, the reaction spoke volumes. The audience gave The Rock a standing ovation that went on for over 15 minutes, and he was visibly emotional, fighting back tears. Reviews called his performance vulnerable and career-defining, comparing it to films like The Wrestler and Raging Bull. This was something The Rock had never experienced before. He wasn't just being talked about as a movie star, but as an actor. And at the press conference, he admitted this was something he'd wanted to do for a long time.
I had been very fortunate to have the career that I've had over the years and make the films that I've made. There was just voice inside of me, the little voice that, well, what if I could do more, and I want to do more, and what does that look like?
What's interesting is the kind of role he chose. Mark Kerr's story is defined by the very things The Rock has always avoided on screen: defeat, weakness, and vulnerability. Kerr was a champion, yes, but he was also an addict, a man who broke down publicly, who lost fights, and lost control of his life. For an actor who literally had it written in his contracts that he can never lose a fight, stepping into the skin of a man like Kerr is almost as far from the Rock formula as you can get. Dwayne said he's had an itch to do this for years, but why only now? Because for most of his career, he's pretty much just played himself. Whether you saw him in Fast and Furious, Jumanji, San Andreas, Skyscraper, or Jungle Cruise, his movies always felt like you were just watching The Rock, the ripped action hero who cracks jokes, saves the day, and almost never loses. That became his trademark, not just the size, but the invincibility. His movies were a product, and while they poured in massive audiences, nobody respected him as an actor. Still, the formula worked again and again. He became the highest paid actor in Hollywood, its safest box office bet, and built a global brand off that one role. And that's why the downsizing is so shocking. So the question is, what finally forced the reinvention? Well, it may have been due to concerns about his health. Just 3 months ago, The Rock appeared on Dr. Mark Hyman's podcast to speak in depth about his health. In the episode, he revealed a scare he had after learning one of the arteries in his heart may have a blockage.
A little bit before you and I met.
Yeah.
But just as we met.
Yeah.
I was looking at the valves and I had a complete cardiovascular workup. There was what looked to be some stuff inside the,
like a buildup of
like
what
a
they thought was
buildup,
plaque.
what they thought was plaque in the circumflex valve.
In the artery, yeah.
In the artery, right? And then when we looked at that on the old school traditional MRI and the scans, it looked like I had buildup. And then immediately the call to action was, all right, well, let's get you on this medication It's a multi-month medication, and here we go. We got to get on it right away.
The Rock was shaken by this news and contacted Hyman for a second opinion. He underwent advanced AI scans which determined there was no plaque at all, just a harmless irregularity, not the life-threatening blockage he'd feared. On paper, everything looked fine, but moments like that tend to stick. At 53 years old, staring down the possibility of heart disease likely forced Dwayne to confront his own age and the limits of a body he's pushed to extremes for decades. But here's what stood out. Despite the podcast running 37 minutes and covering almost every aspect of his health, gut problems, nutrition, genetic testing, heart scares, there wasn't a single mention of steroids or performance-enhancing drugs. Not once. For someone whose physique has been questioned for so long, that silence said a hell of a lot. It's no coincidence the episode currently sits with more than half the viewers hitting the dislike button. Scroll through the comments and you'll see the same complaints over and over again. How can you spend nearly 40 minutes talking about The Rock's health and never address the elephant in the room? Getting rich in 2025 is actually way simpler than most people think. You don't need years of experience or an expensive degree, because today, AI isn't just helpful anymore, it's required. More and more careers now demand AI skills, and people who have them are 130% more in demand. That's why I want to share something special. The 2-day AI Mastermind Workshop by Outskill, the world's first AI-focused education platform. It's happening live this weekend from 10 AM to 7 PM EST both days. Normally, access costs $895, but I've partnered with Outskill to give away 1,000 free seats exclusively for my viewers. This isn't just another course. In just 16 hours, you'll learn directly from expert mentors how to use 10+ powerful AI tools, master prompt engineering, automate workflows, and even build AI products without writing a single line of code. And because it's such a short time commitment, it's perfect for busy professionals, entrepreneurs, and anyone who wants to level up fast. Plus, attendees get bonuses worth $5,100, including a prompt Bible with 3,000+ prompts, a roadmap to monetizing AI, and a personalized AI toolkit. You'll also get lifetime access to Outskill's exclusive AI community of over 5,000 professionals. Seats are limited and filling up fast, so grab yours now via the link in the description and pinned comment. Don't miss out. Join the thousands of others who've used Outskill and never looked back. The truth is, people aren't stupid. They know that if there's a single factor that's posed the biggest risk to The Rock's long-term health, it's the years of PED use, whether he admits it or not.
He'd been using and abusing performance-enhancing drugs for years, and what do you think that does? Well, aside from building a friggin' physique such as this, it also causes a host of negative side effects, one of which it sets you up for a heart attack. Your heart is going to grow bigger, which sounds good, but it's not. Left ventricular hypertrophy is not something that you want. It can increase LDL, lower HDL, and does a host of negative things to your body. Hence, The Rock had to make a change, or he wouldn't be able to change ever again because he'd no longer be with us.
One Instagram user posted a video analyzing The Rock's transformation, attributing it to him hopping off gear, and Dwayne actually responded.
The Rock has officially come off steroids. Now, love him or hate him, this guy is on the top of the charts when it comes to fake naturals. He's right up there with Mike O'Hearn. However, the show looks like it's finally coming to an end. He recently found out that he had plaque buildup in his circumflex artery from his decades of gear use. Now, the reason why this plaque buildup can be so fucking dangerous is because it can lead to heart attacks, strokes, or aneurysms, which is probably why he decided to hop off. Now, steroids in general, especially when taken in high doses, can have an extremely negative effect on your cholesterol, blood thickness, and your blood pressure, which can accelerate plaque buildup.
The Rock commented on the video saying, "This is 100% not true." For him to reply to a random person's post like this is extremely out of character, so it may be that what the guy said hit a nerve. According to The Rock, the reason for his weight loss has nothing to do with his health or steroids. He says that downsizing is for his next project, Lizard Music. In the film, he'll play an eccentric older man known as the Chicken Man, a role that requires a leaner, more fragile look than the comic book physique he's known for. And here's where the move makes sense. After pushing his body to the extreme for Mark Kerr, slimming down now kills two birds with one stone. It proves he can take on a very different kind of role, building credibility as an actor, and it also gives him cover to drop the muscle and protect his long-term health. At 53, after decades of strain, carrying that kind of bulk just isn't sustainable. But it seems that online, many people have seen right through his explanation. The Rock, after his doctor told him he had to stop the gear or he was going to have a heart attack. A different commenter pointed to Hulk Hogan, another wrestling superstar who built his career on size and recently died at 71 from a heart attack. It's the kind of headline that lingers in the back of your mind, especially if you're in the same world, built the same way, and pushing into your 50s. It makes the timing of The Rock's dramatic weight loss look less like coincidence and more like self-preservation. But here's the reality. Going from years of heavy cycles to suddenly cutting everything cold turkey doesn't just shrink you, it wrecks you. Which is why the smarter guess is that he hasn't stopped completely, he simply scaled down. Lower doses, a more sustainable regimen. Enough to still look great without pushing his body to the breaking point.
I believe that The Rock has now lowered his doses. I don't think he's 100% natural. When you go from abusing steroids for perhaps 30 straight years, your body is going to shut down. Your HPT axis is going to be lowered. You're not going to have testosterone produced. Your LH, FSH hormones are going to be in the toilet. And so if he actually just cut out testosterone cold turkey, he would have brain fog. He would feel horrible. He wouldn't be able to use the downstairs effectively. It wouldn't be very good.
While The Rock's slimmer size may be opening new doors in Hollywood, it may have closed one too, because trimming down doesn't just change how directors see him, it changes how the WWE sees him as well. Earlier in 2024, Dwayne stepped back into WWE storylines, even headlining WrestleMania alongside Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Fans speculated a full in-ring return was on the horizon, but now, looking at him in Venice, the chances feel slim. Without the bulk, The Rock loses a spectacle that made him larger than life in the ring. A cameo or promo, maybe, but the idea of him carrying another WrestleMania main event the way he once did, that's looking more unlikely than ever. One fan summed it up perfectly, saying, "It's hard to be the final boss when he's half his size. He isn't the hulking figure that Cody has to overcome. Unless he beefs back up, Rock vs Rhodes or Rock vs Reigns doesn't appear to be the matchup it would have been 2 years ago. From everything we hear about The Rock's ego, I doubt he'd want to show up smaller than the guy he'd be facing." Dwayne's not the only wrestler turned actor who's had a massive downsize recently. In 2024, fans noticed the same thing with Dave Bautista. Pictures surfaced of him looking far slimmer than before, a clear step away from the heavy, muscle-bound frame that defined his peak years. Bautista is a few years older than The Rock, and his decision to downsize came with the same unspoken message. At this age, carrying that kind of bulk just isn't sustainable. The risks are too high, and the health costs are too great. Bautista admitted as much himself. After bulking up to over 300 pounds for Knock at the Cabin, he said the size was miserable to carry. He slimmed down through diet changes, intermittent fasting, and jiu-jitsu, explaining that the lighter frame made him feel healthier, more mobile, and more comfortable in his own body.
And then I noticed, like, the more I trimmed down, the better I felt. And I also noticed the more I trimmed down, the better I looked on camera. The better I look next to other actors.
This was an added bonus for Bautista, but it's clear his primary motivation was his health and longevity. It's no coincidence that both his and The Rock's transformation happened around the same age. And this is where the comparisons get even more interesting. Because while The Rock and Bautista have arrived at similar points physically, the way they've approached Hollywood couldn't be more different. From the start, Bautista didn't chase the same kind of stardom The Rock did. Yes, he broke out in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, but instead of cashing in on that success with generic action movies, he deliberately sought out directors who valued performance and character. That's why you've seen him in Denis Villeneuve's Blade Runner 2049 and Dune, and Rian Johnson's Knives Out. These films still made him a household name, but in a very different way. They showcased him as a versatile actor, someone respected by critics and filmmakers, not just a bankable star.
What he's accomplished is not something I'm after. You know, I like to think that I'm a character actor and I'm after diverse roles. You know, I think we all want different things.
Bautista approaches acting like a student, keen to learn the craft, prove himself, and disappear into his roles. For The Rock, it's always been about the optics. How badass does a role make him look? How many tickets will the movie sell at the box office? How does it reflect on his brand and his businesses? It was all about ego, and it always has been, which makes the timing of The Smashing Machine and the upcoming Lizard music even more interesting. In the span of just just 2 projects, Dwayne has gone both bigger than ever and smaller than ever, bulking up to embody Mark Kerr, then downsizing dramatically to play a frail older man. On the surface, they look like opposite moves, but at the core, they're the same thing, an attempt to finally climb the one mountain he hasn't conquered. Because as much as The Rock has nailed box office dominance, global fame, and business success, there's one thing he's never had: credibility as an actor, and the cracks in his old formula have already started to show. Black Adam was marketed as his passion project, a film that would change the hierarchy of power in the DC universe. Instead, it bombed, and worse, The Rock was exposed for trying to take over the franchise, pushing Henry Cavill's Superman return and maneuvering to make himself the centerpiece of DC's future. When the film tanked, so did his plan, and Dwayne was quietly pushed aside. Then came Red One, his big Christmas movie, which was laughed at online and dismissed as another overproduced misfire. And streaming didn't help his case either. Movies like Red Notice were promoted as record-breaking hits on Netflix, but critics tore them apart, reinforcing the idea that The Rock's films had become hollow products, all image and no substance. At the same time, the scandals and the myths were piling up.
The Rock has been outed for lying not once, twice, 3 times, but multiple times. For example, you all remember The Rock said, "Hey, this is my first time in this fast food restaurant."
This is the very first time that I have ever tried an In-N-Out burger.
"It's my first time eating this burger and fries." It was his third, with evidence. Why lie about it being your first time in a fast food chain? I mean, why would you do that when there's video evidence showing that you're not? Why can't The Rock, for once in his life, simply tell us the truth? He lies about almost everything. He says exactly what you want to hear. Oh, The Rock eats 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day.
Well, I would say possible, almost 8,000 calories a day.
Sure he does. Sure he does, Rock. The Rock doesn't eat 6,000 calories a day. What's next? You think The Rock only drinks Zoa Energy? How do you think he got all that muscle? Because he's the hardest worker in the room? Because he's up at 4:30? We've seen The Rock's workouts, using those bikini girl weights, walking around, trying to make it look like it's harder than last time when he's lifting almost nothing. Or is it the steroids?
For years, people bought into The Rock's People's Champ persona. I mean, at one point, a poll even showed that 46% of Americans wanted him to run for president. He was presented as the ultimate success story, but that sheen has worn off. More and more, people see him as manufactured, a character just as scripted as the one he played in the WWE, and his film career has fed into that. For all his success, The Rock has never been taken seriously for his acting, which is why these new movies feel like more than just another role. It feels like a rebrand, a bid to finally get the respect that's eluded him for years. But the stakes go beyond Hollywood. The Rock's entire business empire has been built on his image. Terramana Tequila, Zoa Energy Drinks, Under Armour's Project Rock line, all of it has leaned on the idea of a man who's superhuman, which raises the question, what happens to that empire if the image changes? A slimmer Rock is healthier, sure, but he's also less of the comic book figure that the brand was built around. It's a risk, but it could pay off. Because here's the truth, The Rock was admired, even idolized, but he was never really relatable. People wanted him as president because he embodied strength and success, not because he reminded them of themselves. Now, with age showing in his face and the bulk stripped away, there's a chance to present something different, a version of himself that isn't about perfection, but vulnerability.
You know, when you're in Hollywood, as we all know, and it had become about box office, and you chase the box office, and the box office in our business that we know is very loud, and it can be very resounding, and it could push you into a category and into a corner, and this is your lane, and this is what you do, and this is what people want you to be, and this is what Hollywood wants you to be. And I understood that, and I made those movies, and I liked them, and they were fun, and some were really good and did well, and some not so good. I think what I did realize is that the most important thing, I just had this burning desire and this just voice that was saying, well, again, what if? But what if there is more? And what if I can? And a lot of times it's harder for us to, or at least for me, sometimes to know what you're capable of when you've been pigeonholed into something. It's harder to know, wait, can I do that? I feel like I can. And sometimes it takes people who you love and you respect to say, you can. I don't think it's anything to prove to Hollywood as much as it's just, for me, now.
This actually came across as genuine, or at least more honest than his usual hardest worker in the room shtick. The Smashing Machine will be released on October 3rd, 2025. If it hits, we might see The Rock double down, taking on riskier roles and stepping away from the safe blockbusters. Who knows, he might shock the world and actually become a respected actor. But even if there's a chance of that, it won't happen overnight. He spent the last 15 years building up this cartoonish, invincible image, and it will take a very long time to break that down. Don't forget, grab your free seat for the 2-day AI Mastermind using my link below.